Hello, listeners. We're back with another episode of LFG with ANF, Amir and Friends. This is your host, Amir Moore, and your co-host, Keenan Fry, is here as well.
Hey!
As usual, with the boisterous entrance, and we've got a really special guest for all of you today. David Wachsman is here. And he is the singer, songwriter, and guitarist of SÖNUS. And SÖNUS is basically a band that does really like stoner-ish / like, you know, really imaginative metal, and they incorporate rock elements into it. And Dave will talk a lot more about that himself. And right now your co-host, Keenan Fry, is going to take it away talking to Dave. Let's get right into it.
Hey, Keenan Fry with the LFG podcast. I'm here with Dave Wachsman. You sure it's not SÖNUS, Sonic?
Hey, God damn it, we've been over this, Keenan.
It's not Sonic the Hedgehog.
First of all, it's Wachsman, and second of all, it's SÖNUS.
all right. We got to get that out of the air because we've had some hiccups today, and it's good to let a little air out of the balloon. All right. So Dave, I've known you since, I think, 2014. We have a mutual friend, Christian Hutton. We call him the Slumlord. Scumbag, piece of shit, gutter punk.
Yeah.
What do you call him?
Not the Slumlord Millionaire, folks.
No, definitely not.
He's the stoop kid. He sometimes calls himself stoop kid. So Christian's a good friend of mine. I've known him since probably 2010. And Christian lives out on the west side of San Jose. And we used to hang out at his place and go to his basement jams. And you were doing a lot of projects here and there, and I met you through one of those jams. Like I said, something like 2014. Now, me and Christian, we went to San Jose State, so a lot of the people I know from that area are, you know, San Jose State alumni. But you're a bit different. You went to SF State.
Yep, I went to SF State. I was like, San Jose, why do I want like a 15-minute commute when I can have a 45 to an hour commute? So I went to for 4 years. So there you go. I chose San Francisco State. Fuck.
So you did anthropology, which is basically being an archaeologist.
Yeah, pretty much. So so before San Francisco State, I was at Foothill. Through Foothill, I did their kind of field school program. So I was working on Incan hill forts in Ecuador. I've been working all around the Bay Area on Native American remains and sites like that. Ireland, then transferred to, and I've been working on a 13th century Anglo-Norman castle for a number of years, and and that's afforded me the opportunity to travel around Europe and stuff like that. It's been a cool time.
Yeah, and what's that like? Because we've talked earlier, and you mentioned it's kind of like a blue-collar style of work, but because you are doing research, but you're also swinging like a pickaxe, you were talking about.
Yeah, you're just like a really, really book-smart construction worker, you know what I mean? Because basically you're out there in the elements all day, with a shovel, digging into the dirt, basically, and, you know, at various levels you have to be like really careful and delicate, and then other times you're just blasting through fucking, dirt like as
Do
much
they
as
pay
you
more,
can.
Dave?
Fuck no. Yeah, you don't make shit in archaeology, let me tell you. Oh my god.
Glorified ditch digger.
Yeah, pretty much, with a degree. So there you go. What are you gonna do? That
sounds like something the Soviet Union would do. You have to get a degree in ditch digging. I'm a university professor of shovels.
Right? You got to learn all this history. You got to learn all these techniques and all this stuff. And then it's like, good luck to you. But, it's super interesting work. It's really cool. I mean, I've gotten the opportunity to travel and stuff like that. And, I mean, funnily enough, our current drummer, Colin Jaramillo, is the one who got me into archaeology. And I then got him into music. So together, we've just been determined to never make a fucking cent between us.
Oh, God. But there's something actually deeper about this. See what I did there?
Excavating there. Oh,
fuck you. Okay, so, but there is something deeper there because you talk a lot about your own inspiration. When you were a kid, you used to read a lot of like pulp science fiction, pulp fantasy fiction.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like that whole Indiana Jones vibe where you're going to explore, lost history. You don't actually find like temples of doom, but you do get to do cool things like uncover a castle and stuff like that. And how does it, it's kind of like art imitates life, life imitates art. How does that relate to you when you were a kid
Yeah. Well, I first of all, I'll say it didn't stop when I was stopped being a kid. I keep doing it. But, yeah, big fan of, like Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, Michael Moorcock, like just sci-fi fantasy stuff like that. And I always wanted to live a life where I'd be having adventures and it would be exciting and I'd be able to go around and, experience different stuff. And I have had that, and it's been cool. So, I've always had interest in history and ancient civilizations and things like that. From the fantastic sense, yes, but then also it's just interesting to kind of like learn like the reality about it and stuff. So yeah, it's been a real cool time, and I've had a bunch of amazing adventures, and I've gotten to kind of live a life that most people don't ever even attempt to be able to do, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, and you kind of come from a little bit of an academic background. Your dad was a university professor at University of Maryland. He does a lot with energy, a lot of research and development stuff, very technical. And so you kind of are like the black sheep in a way because you turned away from that and you're like, I'm going to do something more creative.
Yeah, so yeah, my dad is like the top 1% of scientists in the world in the field of energy, according to some like new Stanford thing. He can do calculus in his head. I can draw well. It's just kind of a different type of a brain. So yeah, I pretty much came to terms pretty quickly with the fact that I was not going to be a big mathematician at any point.
In all fairness, my father's a biochemical engineer, and I have a bachelor's of science in journalism.
Yep.
Yeah.
Woo! Another big bank money making degree right there, buddy.
Yeah, and I'm in the world of art, so I know that feeling. So you've got all these interests, these hobbies, and they started to accumulate into you wanting to do a bunch of musical projects. And around 2014, when I met you, you were in a project called Wild Scream. What was it called?
Yeah, Wild Scream. Yeah.
And then you transitioned out of that and you moved into other stuff. And in my experience, a lot of those projects, those early ones, they're really tough. Personalities don't gel all the time, and you run into situations where maybe someone's more of a perfectionist than you are, and they kind of put their thumb down on something and they kind of tip the scales against it. And it sounds like those early years you were a little bit frustrated, but then around 2018, 2020, you started moving in this direction to what became, SÖNUS.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so, I'd kind of been in a variety of projects here and there. None of them seemed to, like, really be going anywhere at, like, a rate that I was, at all happy with. Plus, ultimately, I just had all these ideas, and I wanted to make them into actual songs. So, the first one that I wrote from the first album was The Hour of the Dragon, brackets, Conan the Conqueror, because A, I love a big, long prog rock title, and B, I just wanted to get that in there, because who gives a fuck?
And it sounds badass.
And it sounds
too.
bad. Hey, what are you going to do? I wear my fucking shit on my sleeve, so yeah, the song's about Conan, there you go. So yeah, that was the first one that I wrote and I finished, and I was like, fuck, this is actually pretty cool. And that kind of went on to inform sort of the sound of that album. And, I kind of branched out here and there on other things like Worlds Undreamed Of. The title track is a ballad. There's not even any drums on it. It's very, kind of like almost like a medieval kind of thing. To then like classic like 50s, 60s rock and roll with rock and roll necromancy, which was also a tribute to Lemmy and, David Bowie and just other kind of heroes I had who had died. So yeah, that's kind of where that first album came from. COVID hit. I just finishing up my last semester at college remotely at that point. And I was working as a land surveyor with my archaeology experience to, stay local while I'm going through college. But then that job ended up, shutting down. They moved back to Texas and stuff like that. So I was unemployed. I had just graduated. Nobody was hiring. There was a fucking pandemic.
Down,
I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. It's like, hurry up and wait. I was like, oh, I'm finally going to fucking graduate. And the world closes down on me and everybody else, right?
Right.
So, I just had all that energy, and I just channeled it into pretty much those 2 albums.
You told us about the mic booth you made. How did you do that?
Yeah. So, I just had like a couple like giant cardboard boxes of like toilet paper, from the pandemic, like lying around the house, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, I was like, well, fuck, I need a mic booth, right? So I chopped 2 of them in half, and I like stacked one on top of the other. I made like a little shelf desk out of one of the pieces, and I just duct taped the shit out of it. And then there you go. Here's my little vocal booth. I bought some sound paneling. I fucking stapled it to the interior, and then that was that. I put my microphone inside. I had my shelf. I had like a little, light in there, and I'd put my water in there, and I'd just go to town screaming in a little cardboard box for hours on end. And there you go. That's how I did the vocals.
Oh, man. The neighbor's like, oh, great, this guy's having
Keenan, can you picture a more like perfect pandemic like picture?
Yeah, really.
I got locked in here with this guy.
Just some dude just going fucking nuts. Yeah. Meanwhile, like my girlfriend's just sitting there like reading a book, and I'm just like, would you mind leaving the room? I have to record vocals. I'm gonna go into my box.
That's the coolest part about it, though, because you kind of went in with no expectations, just like, hey, I'm gonna fucking do this. Let's just balls to the wall, go for it. And then what happened? What came out of it?
Well, yeah, like it was the craziest thing, right? So like finished the album, had it mixed and mastered by Liam Schmidt in the Zone Studios, and I just kind of had it around. I was like, okay, how do I go about releasing a fucking album? Well, I don't know, and nobody's gonna hear this shit anyway. So I was like drunk on my birthday, November 19th, 2020. And I was like, publish, Bandcamp, DistroKid, there you go. All right, it's on. It's in the ether now. Whatever fucking happens. And pretty soon after, somehow, I don't fucking know how they found it, but McMaster's Space Rock Spectacular in Arizona picked it up and was playing the album on fucking radio station. I was like, what the fuck? I'm on the radio? I just fucking put this thing out. This is crazy as shit.
How was that hearing your own song on radio?
It was fucking awesome. It was so cool. The guy's like, yeah, I'm going to play your thing tonight. I was like, what? You are? So, like, we were just sitting there, like, we put on, like, Alien Worlds on Netflix just to have some visual, and then I had it, like, tuned in on my phone and, like, onto my sound bar, and, me and my mom and my girlfriend were just sitting around, and it's like, oh, shit, that's my fucking song on the radio. Like, what the fuck? It was really cool. And then, let's see, then Conrad of Stoner Hive and the Doom Charts, he found it and wrote this just absolutely super flattering review.
All right.
Like it was totally mind blowing. Yeah.
And that's got to be really fulfilling, because one of the things you look for as an artist is a little bit of validation, because you put so much into it and you're like, ah, fuck.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes along and says, hey, that's actually not trash, and
Yeah.
It's pretty big. It puts some wind in yourselves, especially after all that time where, you were struggling to get your artistic voice heard and what it is you were making previously. Now it's like, hey, you've actually got something here. And then after that, you were like, okay, well, I've got my release. I've got, Worlds Undreamt Of. But now you wanted to put out a new project, which was basically Usurper of the Universe.
Yeah.
And you had to put together like a band and like a whole project for that.
So the band actually came later, right? So Usurper, I pretty much started recording and writing that one like immediately after Worlds Undreamed Of came out. Like I already had some ideas that were, like fragments of ideas that were kind of like in some sort of state. And so yeah, I just kind of kept at it, and I just kind of kept writing those songs. And then I got 2 other older songs from one of my former projects that I was working on. With Tyler Hovestad. There are songs that I wrote with him in mind, but we just kind of differentiated creatively. But I was able to get him and my friend Eddie Salazar, who was in Wild Scream, drums there, to play drums on the album and helped me out with Usurper of the Universe, and then that that was great because it went from there's no contest between sampled programmed drums to like a real fucking drummer. So I had that on the second album, in addition to everything that I learned like production wise from doing the first. And so yeah, that one came together really quickly. I got Simon Jameson of Black Arts Audio to do the mixing and mastering. He did a great job. I was really involved with the process, kind of making it sound like I wanted. And I'm super happy with the result. And that album was just named number 80 in the 100 best albums of 2022 by the Doom charts, which is
that's what I'm talking about.
Fucking mind-blowing. Like, are you kidding me? Holy shit.
Hey, yeah. Dave, we're going to come back to some more about that in just a minute after our break.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, we're on break right now, and we will be back shortly. Make sure to stay tuned.
This next artist was a submission, and we're going to tell you in a few minutes how you can submit your work to Soundwaves FM, and we could potentially play you on the radio, but that's how we discovered these guys. And up next is a band that's going to be playing the Hotel Utah on February 18th in San Francisco with the bands On and Slow Phase. This is SÖNUS and Pay Me Your Mind. Soundwaves FM.
Hey listeners, we are back now with the episode. We're still here with Dave, and plan is for me to ask Dave a little more about his creative process and sort of how he goes through things when he's coming up with the music for his albums, and just in general. So Dave, I would appreciate if you can just give us a little insight, first and foremost, into how you go about with your creative process when coming up with song ideas, or even just like some of the guitar riffs and stuff that you do. Like, what's generally like the way you go about it, and does that differ at any points?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of, so I mean, sometimes I'll just be jamming, I'll come up with a riff, I'll be like, oh, that's cool, and then you just kind of see like where it goes. And before you know it, you've got like pretty much 3 riffs that kind of flow nicely into each other, and basically you have a song right there. Then it's just a matter of like structuring it. Other times I'll just be, like for example, the last song of Usurper of the Universe album, Tanlorn, that one just came to me out of fucking nowhere when I was working a security shift and I was just standing around, just fucking staring off into space. All of a sudden, just boom, in my brain just comes this epic, like, and I'm like, whoa, and just fucking like this choir of vocals and like all this fucking crazy, beautiful shit going on. I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? But, oh shit, okay, now I gotta like get this down. So I dove behind like a bush and I got my phone and I was just like in there like, okay, is anybody gonna fucking see me? Okay, just fucking singing it.
What would you have done if somebody had caught you there? Would you have been like, hey, I'm working on my album that's about to come out?
I don't know, man. I probably should have been like, oh yeah, I don't know what's going on. Hi, you're not supposed to be here, please. Yeah, so at least I'm the security guard, so like I can't call somebody on myself, that'd be a little weird. But yeah, so sometimes it's like that, you just get something just out of the blue, out of nowhere, just in your brain. Like sometimes it's like fully formed, sometimes it's like just like a chunk. And then when I've got like a basic kind of like idea for a song, then I just kind of like listen to it and just kind of like let my imagination wander, and then like whatever I kind of like start to visualize in my head, that then goes on to inform like the lyrics that I write, to kind of get that feeling across, or get whatever sort of fantasy comes in my head as I'm listening to the song. So I kind of feel like they're like soundtracks to a scene, so I'm kind of like trying to write that scene out, and then the music accompanies that in a way.
That's really neat to hear that aspect. To put it into perspective for the listeners, we were talking to Dave before. There's a little insight to behind the scenes, and Dave literally has over 200 recordings right now on his phone, and he told me that he's deleted over 300 too, like off it. So, and we're talking from 2015 up till now. So yeah. I can only imagine how many he's even gonna have in a year from now on that phone.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
You might have to upgrade to iCloud, Dave.
I really am. I'm completely out of room. I have no space on my fucking phone now. Yeah.
So going into that, Dave had also talked a little bit about just the inspiration behind some of the songs on the EP, and I really want to know, and I'm sure the listeners would be curious, for the title of the EP, what sort of inspired that title, and maybe also what were some of the bands that inspired the way those songs were produced.
Sure. So for the EP, do you mean Usurper of the Universe, like the last album?
Oh, sorry. I mean the first album.
For sure. Yeah. So pretty much, Worlds Undreamed Of was kind of like, we were all just sort of trapped in our own little COVID bubble for a long time. So that whole album is kind of like an ode to the imagination. I'm a big reader, so there's a song about Conan, there's a song about Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion, there's just an ode to rock and roll. And then there is, pretty much then Worlds Undreamed Of, the title track, which is this kind of like soothing ballad of like, the world's really fucked up right now, but we're kind of gonna get through it, and the way to get through it, I think, is to kind of like go inward and just kind of find like an inner peace within yourself. And for me, the way that I do that is fantasy, and it's the imagination, and it's stuff like that. So that's kind of what that whole first album is about.
That's amazing to hear. I know a lot of us can relate to that during the pandemic. Just having to sort of come to terms with things and find an outlet to sort of release some of the stress. So I'm glad you found a great outlet, and clearly it's been marvelous in terms of that. You know, you've had great feedback, really good feedback, in fact, on both the first EP and the most recent album too. So kudos to you for that.
I actually have a question. So we talked earlier, and we were joking around about the cover of Imagine, where there's the line in the song where it's like, imagine there's no such thing as heaven, and then you got this whole pandemic where people and their grandparents are dying. So it's like, oh yeah, grandma's just dead and going to hell. And we were talking about that earlier, but the real criticism of that, presentation, was Gal Gadot and a bunch of other Hollywood, celebrity idiot types.
Yeah.
It came across as tone deaf.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman trying to steal the show,
right?
Per usual.
So here's my question for you. This is a little bit of a different take. How do you make sure that something isn't tone deaf? Like what's your internal?
Oh shit. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. One of the the first kind of singles off the second album, You Serve the Universe, is the song Nuclear God. And I had a fucking music video that released like the day before Putin invaded Ukraine. And I was like, fuck.
Fuck. Could you have scripted that any better or worse?
No, so then I'm like, fuck. Well, so ultimately what I ended up doing is just really not promoting it that much, because there's no fucking world that I could just be hey.
And the fact that it's Ukraine of all places,
Chernobyl and everything. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What are the chances? It's like Murphy. It's like Murphy had like an epiphany, like, oh, he's releasing this song. Yeah. Okay, let me just make sure this happens the next day.
The song is about like some fucking megalomaniac basically, getting control of the superpower in the world and, blowing up the world with nuclear weapons. And what the fuck is the number one fear all of a sudden in the entire world? Like, you couldn't fucking plan that shit. So, yeah, I didn't push that too hard, because I was like, I'm not going to try and capitalize off this fucking true horror in the world. But, like, oh my God, yeah. So, check out the song now that some time has passed and we're not, dust, I guess, now. But, yeah, holy fuck, dude, that was crazy.
Yeah, but that is a really good point, though, actually, because really the message of songs and of tracks and how they transition really does play a big role into how listeners and also other musicians interpret what the original artist was trying to get through, and that is something I think that's really critical too. I do want to though talk a little more about also I know before we had been talking and you talked about how like there's no need to be striving for perfection.
Yeah.
That perfection is sort of like a myth in a lot of ways. That totally. It's a way of, it's more about having fun, like enjoying the process, and also really loving what you produce. So I'm hoping, Dave, you can maybe tell listeners a little about your philosophy when it comes to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with people who have definitely like the perfectionist mindset. I mean, the thing is too, I mean, I'm making like rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be fun. It's got to have that kind of, that loose sort of vibe for me. I mean, I love it when there's like a mistake on an album, or if like, you hear some like little studio chatter like during a song, so stuff like that you can kind of listen to a song like a million times, and then like you finally notice it and you're like, oh shit, they totally fucked that up right there.
The Led Zeppelin squeak.
Yeah, exactly. There's like little like studio tracks or talking or something like that. I mean, and just little imperfections and stuff like that where it doesn't feel so robotic, it feels more human, it feels more natural. Now, obviously, I'm recording to a fucking click track because I'm just one guy playing everything in my fucking room, right? But I still tried to kind of keep a little bit of that going by just like playing a track all the way through and not editing like super,
Yeah, not neurotically, I get it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because, you definitely can certainly fall into that trap where you're like, oh, but it's not perfect, but it could be this, that, and the other thing. But ultimately, like, nobody fucking cares. Like, it's kind of arrogant, I think, to think that people are going to be, like, listening to your shit, like, that intently. I mean, maybe one day, but you know what I mean? I just think that a lot of times I've seen people who have really good ideas completely scrap those ideas or just leave them on a shelf for years because it wasn't what they considered to be like perfect or something like that. And I think that's a total shame. I don't think that there is a thing like perfection, and I think that is ultimately what makes human art such a beautiful thing, because it is human and because it is imperfect. And I don't know, to me that just makes it interesting. So I do a lot of improvising. The solos on my album, like 80% improvised. When I play live, improvising a lot. I love improvising. For me, it's a lot of fun. It's a creative experience. It's also just kind of, it allows you to sort of feel the song, even sometimes differently, like in the moment. So like, for me, like I'm mostly self-taught, but one of the guys when I was kind of learning guitar, I had this friend Roosevelt Hoover the Fourth.
Hold on. Say that name one more time for the listeners, please, so they fully capture the magnitude of this name.
Roosevelt Hoover the Fourth.
Like you can't get more, like, number one, 2 presidents, like, in that name, and number 2, like, to add the 4th, and then it's like, what a badass rocker name right there.
And he is a total badass. And when I say the 4th, I mean he's the 4th in like a line of jazz musicians, and that whole kind of approach of like improvise, like know your instrument, like just kind of feel it, feel the groove, get into it. Don't worry about being perfect, just like play something interesting and cool. Like that kind of stuck with me. That kind of like that jazz approach to things, like as opposed to like the very like regimented sort of like, all right, we're gonna get our sweep picking perfectly. Which I mean, all the techniques and stuff, that's all good and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, for me, it was always more like a soulful kind of style that I gravitate to on guitar, because I'm not the most technically proficient guitarist, but I can come up with something that is moving and memorable, and that to me is, I think, more important and more interesting personally. But yeah, so yeah, Roosevelt Hoover, if you're out there, shout out to him. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. To go off that really quick, I want to see just real quick, Dave. We only have like a little over a minute, so I just wanted to see, like, for the listeners, I think what Dave's getting at is that like music is like all about expression, like we say a lot, and like that doesn't need to be perfection. Like it can be a process, and it's different to different people, and that's the beauty of it.
Well said.
Yeah, so we're going to go on break right now, folks. Please make sure to stay tuned in, and we'll have some more great content with you with Dave very shortly. See ya.
Okay, I got you. There we go. That's more like it. All right. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the band. On the bass, half man, half Sasquatch, all wizard, Mr. Dave Reno. On the drums, our very own bringer of thunder, the mighty, the majestic, Colin Trey Jaramillo. On guitar, Noah, the Northman Gunthar. Everybody to the right. Madman, yeah! I'm David Wachsman, and this is Nuclear.
We're back. We're still here with Dave. We're going to talk a little more about some more interesting things with Dave, and Keenan is going to kick this segment off. Let's get right to it. Woohoo!
Come on.
Yeah!
Woo!
All right!
Man, we've just been kicking the can around for a minute. So Dave, I don't know. I'm just gonna kind of like talk guitar stuff with you and music stuff. So you talked a lot about early on your inspiration and stuff, but you also mentioned that you're really into drawing and stuff. And you know, how does your other creative interests inform your music?
Oh, completely. So like music to me, like in the way that I got into rock and roll and heavy metal, I mean, aside from just like my dad, you know, playing me Led Zeppelin at birth and having pretty much no choice in the matter, it was definitely like the visuals. You know, I've always been, I mean, like from everything that I read, everything I'm into, it's always been like really just like evocative imagery, either in the words or, you know, the soundscape sort of. I mean, you know, you listen to like No Quarter and, you know, you have this incredible Viking epic saga that you can then just imagine in your mind, you know. So that was always something that intrigued me and really attracted me to rock music in particular, because I mean, you know, you're not fucking hearing stuff like that in top of the charts, right? It's dance music, it's for dancing. Well, picturing a bunch of people dancing doesn't really do a whole lot for me. It's not that interesting to me visually, you know, artistically, you know. It's just how, you know, the way I am. So, you know, what would happen a lot of the times, like my parents got divorced when I was young, and you know, my dad would come out and he would pick me up in San Jose, and we'd go all the way up to stay at his aunt's house in San Francisco. And it's, you know, it's a long drive. You'd usually take 280 because it's a lot nicer to drive than 101. Fuck 101. You know, and he'd bring out, you know, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Pink Floyd, you know, all the music which became kind of like the foundation of my musical tastes. And, you know, so we'd just be driving out, I'd be looking at the mountains and the mist over the mountains and listening to, you know, fucking Misty Mountain Hop. And, you know, you just, it just kind of that kind of music, the imagery and the lyrics and the sounds of the riffs and the songs, it's all very evocative.
Yeah, you're driving by Crystal Springs Reservoir, and that's like a whole part of the Bay Area, you know. And
yeah.
It's like that is the iconic side of the landscape, and it's very evocative, like you were saying. I see some of that inspiration for myself, because, you know, there's always the first four. They talk about the first four Led Zeppelin records, the first four Metallica records, the same thing with Mastodon, and, you know, they've all these artists have done something where they've tried to integrate the art into like a style. Led Zeppelin had the fourth record, which was the one that's famous for Stairway to Heaven, but also has the Battle of Evermore. And that's got like the 5 symbols, the Zoso symbols, and all those. And there's the one for the mandolin player, and she's kind of like the secret 5th member, and she's got her own symbol. And, you know, all that kind of integrates. It builds the lore. It interconnects everything. It makes it feel like it was thought all the way through, and it wasn't just produced in a factory.
Yeah, it's a piece of art. You know, you
right.
Get a record, the album cover, that's representative of, you know, it's meant to entice your imagination to then be like, okay, so this should sound like what this looks like. And all the coolest, fucking, most imaginative, evocative album covers came from, you know, rock and roll and heavy metal. I mean, look no further than fucking Iron Maiden, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about iconic, you want to talk about imaginative, every fucking album has this crazy zombie Eddie doing some kind of crazy thing somewhere in time and sci-fi fantasy shit, and all their lyrics are about that, and it's just, you know, it is, to me, I mean, it's together. It's one-to-one. You gotta have that art with the sound. You know what I mean?
I want to jump in real quick on Dave. Like, so you're talking about that fantasy element, and like that plays a big role in your music, especially in the second album. And I just wanted to see if maybe you can touch upon that a little bit. How you incorporated those into your music.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, like the first track, Nuclear God, it kind of there's a lot of like post-apocalyptic imagery and stuff like that. A lot of like Mad Max inspiration and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Same thing. And the second one, Pay Me Your Mind, is a lot of like just crazy like mind control, like paranoia, like Philip K. Dick kind of sci-fi stuff like that. And then we have Usurper of the Universe, which is basically like just this crazy cosmic like Edgar Rice Burroughs, just like swords and planets kind of fucking epic about a guy who kills God and takes his place on the throne, but he's a fucking narcissistic piece of shit, is what you can tell from the lyrics. There's kind of like a whole thing. It's almost a quasi-concept album because I'm kind of telling a story.
That's also the cover.
Yeah.
The guy, he like kills the dude and he's got the sword, and then the other
he's got the crown. Yeah, the guy's freaking out. Yeah,
he's like, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got the eye on his, he's reaching enlightenment and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That reminds me of High on Fire at the Black Plot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
But I mean, like, the funny thing about it is that, so for me the connection's a little bit different. I got into the early 90s this card game called Magic the Gathering.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's heard of it, but the big thing for me was, I can name off the artists like a machine gun, Mark Sugg, Brahm, Mark Tyden, Rebecca Garay, so on and so forth. But the art style of it was the continuity, all the story pieces tied together, and I think that's the thing that people are looking for is storytelling. They don't just want MCU nonsense storytelling where it's. I feel like going back to what we were talking about with your bullshit meter. You have all these people who are trying to commodify storytelling for the sake of making a product, and now we're in phase 4, which has just ended, and now we're entering phase 5 of Marvel. Somehow they still haven't bankrupted themselves, and the movies are just like totally ideological propaganda, and it's meant to just sell this product, and it's kind of like this hollowing out of these older ideas or reusing them.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, as a kid, my dad used to say to me, oh, that's stupid. And he was like very, very blunt about it. But the funny thing is, those ideas back then that were dumb are the ones that everyone revisits, that are valuable. And it's not that the idea is dumb, it's how you produce the idea.
Yeah, it's the execution.
Right. And whether you have respect for it and the material. And if you do, even if you're doing something like, as you've said, Usurper of the Universe, where he's this guy taking over, and then I said, that's like the Black Plot. Even if there's overlap, it's still different, and it's still original and unique, and that's better than anything that's really coming out anywhere near the mainstream right now.
Sure. Although,
I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
That's my little soapbox.
I will say track 4 is about Dune, which is just a multi-million-dollar movie.
Yeah, Dune was actually pretty
written
cool.
before I knew that was coming out, but
Yeah.
that's also a really great book, and the whole thing about that is like not trusting charismatic leaders, and the whole thing about that is basically so you have Paul Atreides, the protagonist of Dune, but he's actually as people who have not read the book, but we'll see the movies, we'll find out, he actually becomes a fucking genocidal dictator.
Yes.
And that's the whole point.
His sister's worse than him.
Exactly, and his son then becomes, one with the sandworms, and he becomes, Duke Leto II, and he becomes this giant, Dune Messiah. He becomes the god of Dune.
Yeah, he fuses with the worm.
Yeah, and the Golden Path, that's his plan, that's his philosophy, it's his ideology. It's basically to be the most horrible fucking tyrant ever and reign for thousands of years so that humanity will be encoded in their DNA to not trust leaders like them or religion, and it's a whole critique against politics and organized religion, all this stuff. And it's also super psychedelic and awesome, and there's crazy space.
I was gonna say there's more elements that probably attract you to it.
It's really fucking cool. It's really fucking awesome. But so that's kind and so that song is kind of like what Hour of the Dragon did. I'm just kind of trying to condense the story or the themes of this and retell it in a musical kind of way.
I mean, Dune is 10 books, and they're
it's 5 massive telephone books. Yeah. My girlfriend read the entire series and just proceeded to rant at me about it for hours on end, and I just kind of absorbed it all, and I was like, whoa, that's awesome. And like I have a short my books are like 200 pages, like 70s sci-fi covers, which is going back to the art. I mean, the 70s sci-fi fantasy fucking covers, unparalleled, amazing illustrations. I love that shit. I collect those paperbacks. I have like a whole fucking 2 bookshelves in my room
like,
just filled with that art and the visuals. You know, Frank Frazetta.
Yeah.
You know, Bob Haberfield. You know, Michael Whalen. Like all these artists.
What names you're throwing out here?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's how you know you're in it, dude.
Yeah. So I'm hugely into that kind of stuff. So all that informs the lyrics and the visuals and all that kind of style.
And that's how you know that there's a lot of thought into it. We're going to jump in a moment into our final segment, but I really appreciate all of that background, Dave. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Hey, and we're back for the final segment. This segment, you guys all know it. You love it. It's called Fucked Up Flashcards. I'm here with Dave Wachsman, and we are going to do Fucked Up Flashcards. Now, the rules are very simple. You have 2 minutes to answer as many of these fucked up questions as you can.
Okay.
All right. And is the timer ready? All right, and let's go. All right. Metallica or Slayer?
Metallica.
Britney Spears or Paris Hilton?
Britney Spears.
Lemmy or Matt Pike?
Lemmy all the way.
Okay, you have to bring him back from the dead and murder him. All right.
What?
You can never drink beer again, or for the rest of your life, you can only drink warm milk.
Oh, I'll never drink beer again.
All right. Bass or drums?
Ooh, bass.
All right. Wolves or tigers?
Wolves.
All right, you got to get your feet chewed off by wolves.
Fuck.
All right, kicked in the balls by Megan Rapinoe or punched in the face by Conor McGregor?
Oh, shit. Conor McGregor, because I'll probably just be out immediately.
All right, Heart or Joan Jett?
Oh, Heart.
All right. Pink Floyd or King Crimson?
Oh, Floyd. Oh, man, that's tough, though.
All right, you got to go shoot everyone in Pink Floyd.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
Frank Zappa or Rush?
Oh, Rush.
All right, you got to give Geddy Lee cancer.
What the fuck?
Jimmy Page or Jeff Beck?
I don't want to answer any of this. Okay, I'm going to go with Jeff Beck because I can't hurt him now.
All right.
But Jimmy Page, though.
All right. And Jimmy Page. Oh, man, you answered these hella fast. All right. All right. A blood transfusion from Keith Richards or a bone marrow transplant from Iggy Pop?
Iggy Pop all the way. Are you kidding me? Those fucking genes? Yeah. Oh, yeah, he might have the scoliosis, but that dude's rock solid. I saw him stage diving at age 70 at the Greek Theater in L.A. on the Post-Prop Depression tour. That motherfucker's still going. Actually, I'm going to see him in San Francisco in a little while.
Well, you're at the last one, all right? Mastodon or Lamb of God?
Oh, Mastodon.
All right. Yeah. You got to chop off Brett Hines' hands.
Oh, God. I didn't sign on to any of this.
All right, that's fucked up flashcards. Last question. What would you do for a White Claw?
Fucking not a lot.
All right, that's it. All right, Dave, you beat the timer. Usually we have people who think a little bit more about this.
Well, you know, what can I say, man? All that improv must be good for something.
All right, well, you got to commit war crimes against Pink Floyd.
Shit. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll get Roger Waters on the case. I'm sure. You know?
Do it. All right.
Man.
That's it for Fucked Up Flashcards. We're going to ask you do you have anybody you want to do a shout out for? Anybody you want to talk about? Anybody that you want to give thanks to? Any bands, any people?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Okay, so right off the cuff, if I miss anybody, I'm so sorry. Let's see. First of all, to my wonderful mother. Let's see. Shout out to Jamie McGinn, my partner in the past 7 years. My best friend Colin Jaramillo, who's our new drummer. New bass player Dave Reno. New guitarist Noah Guntharp. Eddie Salazar, drums on Usurper. Tyler Hovestad, production assistants and synths on Usurper. Let's see here. Simon Jameson, producer, mixer on Usurper. Let's see here. Cale Brugman, Tony Willis at Forbidden Place Records. Let's see who put out the album on CD cassette. Ute Conrad, Mel Lee. Oh my God. There's so many people. John Gist. Oh my God. Everybody at the Doom Charts. Thank you so much. There's so many. You know, I'm like on the spot right here. Everybody at the Doom Charts. NP Ryan. fuck me. What else? David Carpel, Musicpedia of Metal, for your review. Mango Wave Reviews. Oh my God, I know I'm blanking, and I'm missing out so many people. Everybody who's bought, listened to, reviewed, had any kind of feelings at all toward my music, thank you so very much. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Again, you don't think anybody's really going to listen, and then all of a sudden, turns out people are. And that's a pretty cool feeling, so thank you all.
Yeah. All right, Dave Wachsman, SÖNUS, thank you very much, dude.
Pleasure.
All right.